Zeralla walked through the metal hallway of the station with her head down. Her long silver hair covered half of her face like a curtain. She didn't want to be seen. She didn't want to be noticed. She just wanted to clean the floors and return to her sleeping pod that was her life, quiet, cold, and without meaning. Zeralla was from the Solari race. Her people were tall, graceful, and glowing with natural beauty. But not her. Her body was thinner, her skin duller. Her eyes not bright like the others at birth. A scan had labeled her low potential. That meant no male would choose her. That meant she was not fit for breeding. That meant she was less. She worked as a cleaner on the outer ring of the Terran Galactic Space Hub. It was the place where humans and aliens crossed paths. Ships came and left every hour, and no one paid attention to a shy alien girl sweeping floors. Except for one human. His name was Logan. He wore a green maintenance suit and fixed water pipes and air filters. He always had tools in his belt and grease on his fingers. But unlike others, he smiled when he saw her. "Hey there," he said once while passing by. Zeralla didn't answer. She just froze. No one ever spoke to her unless it was to give orders. The next day, he greeted her again. "Morning, how's your shift?" Again, she said nothing, but her hands trembled as she wiped the glass wall. She waited until he walked away before taking a deep breath. Zeralla started to notice the time. She began working near Sector C, the area where Logan usually worked. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to hear his voice. Just one word from him made her day a little warmer. Other aliens noticed. They laughed behind her back. "There goes the empty shell," one said, trying to get attention. "With that face," said another. Zeralla heard everything. But she didn't cry. She just worked faster and kept her head down. Her heart hurt, but she was used to that. One day, Logan was fixing a loose panel on the wall. Zeralla stood nearby. Sweeping quietly, a tall Zarn male walked by and made a loud joke. Maybe she hopes the human will breed her. A group of aliens laughed. Zerella's cheeks burned. She dropped her broom and turned to leave. But Logan stood up, wiped his hands, and faced them. "Hey," he said loudly. The laughter stopped. Logan pointed at the group. "You know what? She works harder than any of you." The aliens blinked, surprised. "She's quiet, polite, and shows up every day. You just sit around and mock people." Then he turned to Zeralla. "And by the way," he added, "I think you're beautiful. Everything." When silent, Zeralla couldn't move. Her eyes went wide. Her breath caught in her throat. Did he really say that? The group slowly walked away, confused and a little embarrassed. Zeralla stood still. Her heart was beating fast. Beautiful. She looked at her reflection in the glass wall. Her hair was messy, her eyes pale, her body thin, but maybe not ugly. Not to him that night. In her tiny room, she looked at herself in the mirror. She brushed her hair slowly. She touched her cheeks, her lips, her small nose. No one had ever complimented her before, not even once. Her heart remembered that one word, beautiful. It echoed inside her like a song, a quiet song, but strong enough to chase the darkness. Zeralla sat on her bed and stared at the ceiling. Maybe she wasn't broken. Maybe she was just different. She closed her eyes and smiled softly. For the first time in many years, she felt something new. Hope. And that hope had a name, Logan. Zeralla sat on her small bed, holding a tiny crystal disc in her hands. It was old, scratched, and marked with the words, "Initial scan record, Z-Class." This disc had followed her everywhere since childhood. It reminded her what she was, what they told her she would never be. She inserted the disc into her wall screen. The same message always played. Subject, Zeralla. Category, low fertility value, emotional instability risk, disqualified for mating. Selection, every word felt like a knife in her chest. The report didn't care about feelings. It only showed numbers, ratios, and red marks. It had shaped her life since she was 5 years old. Her parents had left her at the breeder's dorm. That same year, they said, "The council will take care of you," but they never came back. No one adopted her. No one claimed her. She grew up in silence, watching other girls taken in by powerful families. And she stayed behind, forgotten, but now one human. Word had shaken all that beautiful. It made no sense to her. Why would a human see beauty in a defective female? Did he not know what Z-Class meant? Or did he just not care? The next morning, Zeralla walked into Sector C again. Her hands were shaking, but her steps were firm. She wanted to see him, to hear his voice again. Logan was fixing a gravity pipe near the corridor wall. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, Zeralla. Glad to see you." That greeting, simple as it was, melted something inside her. She nodded slightly and whispered, "Hi." That one word shocked even her. She hadn't spoken to anyone in months, but Logan didn't make a big deal out of it. He just kept talking, like she was normal. Like she was not broken. As they worked side by side, other aliens stared. A group of technicians whispered to each other, "That's the gene-failed girl, right? Why does the human waste time on her?" Zeralla heard it all, but for the first time, she didn't feel crushed by it. She kept cleaning. Sweeping closer to Logan, he glanced at her and asked, "You okay?" Zeralla hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then added softly, "Thank you for what you said yesterday." Logan paused, his face calm. "I meant it," he said. "You're kind. You listen, you work hard. Most people don't see what matters." Zeralla looked down, unsure what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not with kindness, not with respect. Later that night, she opened her old file again. This time, she didn't cry. Instead, she researched human standards. How did they see worth? She read article after article. Humans valued strength, yes, but also loyalty, intelligence, kindness, empathy, all things her society ignored. And strangely, she matched many of those human traits. Maybe too soft for her people, but maybe just right for someone like Logan the next day. The Breeder Council sent her a message. It was rare for someone like her to be contacted. The message read, "Unusual activity noted requesting presence for evaluation." Zeralla's heart sank. Were they watching her? Was she in trouble for talking to a human? Still, she decided to go. She put on her old worker's robe and entered the council chamber. The three elders looked down at her from their high seats. They spoke with cold voices. "Your recent interactions with the human officer have been noted. We've reviewed your logs and schedule. We must ask, has he claimed you?" Zeralla's eyes widened. "What?" she said, confused. "Has he shown intent to bond?" One elder repeated. She shook her head quickly. "No, we just talk. He's kind." The elders shared a glance. Then one leaned forward. "We wish to reevaluate your status. Your behavior suggests possible missed traits." Zeralla stared at them. "You ignored me for years. Now, one compliment from a human changes everything." Still, she agreed. Maybe she needed to know the truth for herself. She left the chamber with a small test kit in her hands. She held it like a piece of fate. What if the results changed everything? What if they changed nothing? That night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the test. Then, at the mirror, she remembered Logan's words. "I think you're beautiful." Tears ran down her cheeks, not because she was sad, but because, for the first time, she believed he might be right. The cafeteria buzzed with voices. Metal trays clinked, and boots echoed across the floor. Aliens from many species sat together, sharing food, laughter, and news from their homeworlds, but one corner of the room fell silent when she walked in. Zeralla had never stepped inside the main dining hall before. She always ate alone in the storage room, sitting on a crate with her recycled meal pack. But today was different. She had accepted Logan's invitation. The day before, he had smiled and asked, "Eat with me tomorrow." "There's an open seat at my table." Zeralla had stared at him, confused, but something in his tone made her nod before she could think. Now she was here, heart pounding, eyes low, hands shaking slightly. She wore a soft, violet wrappa, simple dress she had once hidden deep in her locker. It wasn't fancy, but it flowed around her like moonlight. She had combed her long silver hair, letting it fall neatly behind her shoulders, and when she walked in, heads turned. Not because she was loud, not because she demanded attention, but because she looked different, stronger, taller, alive. Logan stood up the moment he saw her. He waved with a big smile. "Zeralla, over here," he called. His voice cut through the room like a blade. She walked to him slowly, every step heavy, every eye watching. When she sat beside him, the noise returned slowly, but whispers started flying from table to table. "Is that her? The one with the defect label? She looks different." Logan leaned toward her and smiled again. "You look amazing," he said softly. Zeralla didn't know where to look. Her cheeks warmed, her fingers curled nervously under the table. "Thank you," she whispered. Two aliens from her own species passed by. One scoffed and muttered loud enough to hear, "Guess humans have no standards." The other laughed. "Maybe he likes broken things." Logan stood up, his chair scraping the floor sharply. The room went quiet again. Zeralla froze, staring at the table in shame. But Logan didn't shout. He didn't insult. He just looked straight at the two and said in a calm but firm voice, "You know what I think? I think you two are cowards." The aliens blinked, confused. Logan continued, "You follow rules made by people who don't understand value. You judge based on numbers, not hearts." Then he turned, and in front of everyone said, the words that echoed across the room, "Zeralla isn't broken. She's strong, loyal, and more beautiful than either of you could ever see." The entire cafeteria froze. Even the food servers stopped moving. Zeralla's breath caught in her throat, her eyes widened, her hands trembled. She wanted to run, to hide, but something else was happening inside her. A storm was quieting. A wound was healing. A wall was falling. Logan sat back down as if nothing had happened. He picked up his drink and smiled at her again. "I hope you're hungry," he said, like it was just a normal day. Zeralla looked at him for a long moment. Then something rare happened. She smiled just a little, but it was real. And for the first time in her life, she took a full breath without fear. After the meal, as she walked back to her room, aliens moved aside for her. Some looked away, some nodded politely. No one laughed, no one whispered. They had heard Logan's words, and those words had weight. Inside her room, she stood in front of the mirror again, but this time she didn't look at her flaws. She looked at her eyes, her posture, her reflection. Was she really beautiful? She touched her cheek. She remembered the sound of his voice. "She's more beautiful than either of you could ever see." That sentence repeated over and over in her mind like music. She took out the old crystal disc from her drawer, the one that labeled her as not suitable. She looked at it for a long while, then slowly just slid it back into the drawer and closed it. Maybe that label didn't matter anymore. Maybe it never did. From that day forward, Zeralla stood a little straighter. She walked with her head slightly higher, and even though she still stayed quiet, her silence no longer came from fear, it came from peace. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need approval from the council. She had been seen. She had been heard, and most of all, she had been valued. Zeralla opened the old storage box at the back of her room. It had been sealed for years. She had almost forgotten what was inside. But now, her hands moved with purpose, as if something deep inside her was waking up. She removed the seal, lifted the lid, and stared at the folded fabric within, a dress. Shimmering with soft, starlight colors, lay inside like a sleeping memory. She had received it when she was young, a gift from a hopeful caretaker. Back then, she was told to save it for the day someone chose her. But no one ever did, so the dress remained untouched until now. Zeralla lifted it carefully. It felt lighter. Then she remembered, like clouds woven with light. She stepped into the mirror's reflection, holding it in front of her body. A strange feeling rose inside her. Fear, excitement, hope. Logan had invited her to a formal station event. It was a multi-species gathering to celebrate Alliance maintenance crews. He had said, "Come with me, if you feel like it," and for some reason, she did. Her fingers trembled as she slid into the dress. The fabric wrapped around her like flowing silver. She tied the straps gently, brushed her long hair, and took a deep breath. She wasn't just dressing up. She was becoming someone new, or maybe the person she was always meant to be. When Zeralla stepped into the event hall, even the lights seemed to pause. Creatures from many species stood under a glowing dome filled with fake stars. Elegant suits, cultural robes, shimmering scales, and feathers were everywhere, and among them walked a girl once labeled broken. Gasps rippled through the crowd, not because she was flashy, but because she looked radiant, not by force, but by quiet strength, the kind that comes from surviving. Logan stood near the refreshment table. When he saw her, he froze with a drink halfway to his lips. His eyes widened, and a genuine smile spread across his face. "Zeralla," he whispered. He walked up to her slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. "You look." "Wow," he said, unable to find better words. Zeralla smiled softly. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear. She no longer whispered like a ghost. She spoke like someone who belonged. Aliens whispered from corners. "That's the same girl. She looks nothing like before. Is that really her?" Some of them had mocked her. Others had ignored her. But now they couldn't take their eyes off her. One tall male from her species approached. He had once laughed at her in the cafeteria. Now he smiled nervously and bowed slightly. "Zeralla," he said, "I must admit, you're looking quite fine tonight." She tilted her head and replied calmly, "I always looked this way. You just didn't see it." Then she turned away. He stood speechless, unable to argue. Logan offered her a glass of sweet juice, too. "New beginnings," he said. She touched her glass gently to his. "To seeing clearly," she replied as the evening continued. They danced slow and careful. Zeralla didn't know the steps. Logan guided her with a light touch, his hand on. Her back was warm, steady. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. In the background, station officials noticed her. One of them whispered into a communicator, "Send a message to the Breeders' Council subject. Zeralla may need reclassification." But Zeralla didn't care about councils anymore. She wasn't looking for approval. She wasn't hoping for permission. She was simply living finely. As the event ended, Logan walked her to her hallway. They stopped near her room, standing quietly. "I'm glad you came," he said. "I'm glad you asked," she answered. There was a long pause. Stars outside the window moved slowly, like they were watching. Zeralla looked at Logan and asked something she had never dared ask anyone before. "Why do you talk to me?" He looked surprised, then smiled. "Because I see you," he said. "Not your score, not your label, not your rank, just you." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she reached out and gently touched his hand. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. She felt seen, valued, maybe even loved. Inside her room, she hung the dress carefully. She would not lock it away again. She had worn it once, and the stars had noticed. A message arrived early in the morning. It blinked softly on the screen inside Zerella's room. She had just finished brushing her long silver hair when she saw it. Her heart stopped for a moment. The sender was written in cold, sharp letters. Breeder Council Priority Notice. She stared at the screen, unsure what to feel. Fear, anger, confusion, they all swirled in her chest. She touched the message, and it opened with a soft tone. Subject, Zeralla. The voice said, "You are requested to appear at Chamber Hall 7 at second cycle. No delay permitted." That was it. No explanation, no reason, just a command. The same council that once labeled her unworthy now wanted to see her face to face. Zeralla looked at her reflection. She was no longer the frightened girl hiding behind dirty work robes. She was the one who had walked into a hall full of aliens. In a shining dress, the one who stood beside a human who believed in her. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I will not bow this time." When she entered Chamber Hall 7, 3 council members sat on tall chairs. Their expressions were unreadable, cold like marble. The walls glowed with a soft white light, making everything feel sterile and silent. Zeralla, one elder spoke. "We have observed changes in your social behavior." "Yes," another added. "Unusual attention has surrounded you. We understand a human officer has shown you favor." Zeralla nodded. She stood straight, her hands by her sides. "I did not ask for attention," she said calmly. "I only accepted kindness." The elders glanced at each other. A third one leaned forward slightly. "This kindness has created waves among your kind. Other low-classed females now seek interaction beyond traditional ranks." Zeralla blinked. "They want freedom," she said. "They want to be seen like I was." The elder's voice sharpened. "Freedom can disrupt structure." Zeralla's gaze didn't shift. "Then maybe your structure is too weak." A silence filled the room. Not angry. Silence, surprised silence. The girl they once ignored was now speaking back without fear. One elder cleared his throat and tapped the table. "We wish to reevaluate your genetic class," he said, "due to recent emotional developments. We believe your original scan may have missed certain traits." Zeralla didn't answer at first. She stared at the glowing floor, then slowly raised her head. "I already submitted a new test," she said. The results were sent last cycle. The screen behind the council lit up, showing her data. Her genes hadn't changed, but now the analysis was different. Subject possesses high empathy, adaptive response, and cross-species bonding traits. Previously ignored due to outdated scanning algorithms, the council members looked at each other again. One nodded slowly. "These results suggest compatibility beyond traditional breeding categories." Zeralla crossed her arms gently. "So I'm no longer broken, just different." The oldest member gave a slow blink. "That is a fair assessment, Zeralla." Stepped forward once. "Would you have said that if the human hadn't spoken up?" No one answered. They didn't need to. She already knew. "You didn't come looking for truth," she said quietly. "You came because you were embarrassed that someone outside your system saw value you missed." More silence. One elder, finally, spoke. "Zeralla, with your updated score, we offer you a formal place in the breeding registry. You may now choose from qualified partners." Zeralla took a deep breath, then smiled softly. "No," she said. All 3 heads lifted in. "Surprise? No." "I don't need your list," she said. "I don't want a partner picked from numbers and charts. I already found someone who saw me before your approval." The council sat still, unable to respond. Zeralla turned around and walked out. Her steps were light, her heart steady. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. Back in the hallway, Logan leaned against the wall waiting. He looked up as she approached. "How'd it go?" he asked. She looked at him with calm eyes and replied, "They offered me everything, but I said no." He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Zeralla smiled. "Because I already have what matters." Logan chuckled and pushed off the wall. "Well, good. I was worried I'd have to compete with 12 tall aliens. She laughed a soft, warm sound. Don't worry, they didn't stand a chance. The two walked down the corridor side by side. Not a low-class girl and a human officer. Just two souls who had seen each other clearly, and behind them, deep inside the council chamber, three elders sat still in silence. Their system had survived centuries, but now it had been cracked by a single compliment. Zeralla stood by the observation window of the human ship Cradle Dawn. Stars drifted like glowing dust outside. She had never been aboard a Terran vessel before, and now she was part of its crew. Her cleaning days were over after refusing the Breeder Council's offer. Logan had helped her file for a station transfer. She didn't ask for a title, but the humans gave her one anyway. Morale liaison, a role made not from bloodlines or numbers, but from heart. Her job was simple: talk, listen, connect, to offer comfort during long travels between stars. No genes were tested, no charts reviewed, just trust. One evening, she sat in the common area with a young human mechanic named Sam. He was quiet, always hiding in the engine bay. He sat beside her, head low, fingers fidgeting with a bolt. "I messed up a calibration," he said. Captain yelled, "Think I'm not cut out for this?" Zeralla tilted her head. "You think one mistake defines your worth?" she asked. Sam looked at her with tired eyes. "Sometimes feels like it." She smiled softly. "I thought I was born broken," she said. "But someone looked past that. You should too." Sam blinked, then gave a small nod. He didn't smile, but the bolt stopped spinning in his hand. That same week, an alien trader visited the ship. He stared at Zeralla with shock. You were labeled Z-Class," he whispered. "What are you doing here?" Zeralla answered calmly. "Helping." The trader frowned. "But you weren't supposed to become anything." She stepped closer. "Maybe your system can't measure what really matters. I'm not strong like a warrior. I'm not fast like a pilot, but I help people feel seen, feel heard. That's not something a gene scan can measure." The trader left confused, but her words echoed behind him. Later that night, Logan joined her in the observation room. He leaned on the rail beside her, holding two warm drink capsules. "You always stand here when you're thinking," he said. Zeralla took the drink and sipped slowly. "I keep wondering why no one ever told me I had value." Logan shrugged. Maybe they couldn't see it, or maybe they didn't want to. She looked at him. "And you?" He smiled. "I saw it the day you cleaned around my tools without being asked. You noticed things no one else did. That's rare." Zerella's voice was quiet. "They called it emotional excess." "Well," he chuckled, "humans call it empathy, and it's what kept our kind alive more than once." Zeralla turned her gaze back to the stars. "My people thought love was just a system of reproduction, traits to mix and pass on." Logan nodded. "Some humans used to think that way too, but we learned. Love is something deeper." A long silence passed between them, comfortable, soft. Then Logan spoke again. "Can I ask something?" Zeralla glanced at him. "Of course, if you could go back," he said. "Back to that moment they labeled you broken. What would you say to them now?" Zeralla thought for a long time, her hands folded in front of her, her voice steady. "I'd say thank you. Because your label forced me to find my value without you. I found it through pain, yes, but also through kindness, through truth, through people like you." Logan didn't reply right away. He just reached out and gently held her hand, his fingers warm against her skin. She didn't pull away. Later, the ship received a message from the Breeder Council. It was a quiet request. They wanted to interview her, not for reclassification, but for guidance. She laughed when she read it and declined. "They want to study what they refuse to understand," she told Logan. "But I'm not a case file. I'm just someone who decided to live fully." Her Stories spread across the station. Young aliens once labeled like her began to speak up. Some left the dorms, joined crews, applied for new jobs. They wrote her name on messages. Zeralla. The one who broke the mold, Zeralla never asked to lead anyone. She only wanted to be seen. But sometimes, being seen is the first spark of a fire. And now, that fire was spreading. A trait her species called a flaw was now lighting paths. For others, not every miracle comes from power or war. Some come quietly from a girl who refused to be silent. Zeralla stood in the middle of the station's learning hall. A dozen young alien girls sat before her, their eyes wide, ears twitching, heads tilted. Most of them had been labeled unfit, just like she once was. Some were too quiet, too thin, or didn't have the correct bone patterns. Others had been rejected by their families or told they were not worth claiming. Zeralla knelt down to face them eye to eye. "Do you know what I was told when I was your age?" she asked gently. A few shook their heads. A few whispered, "No, I was told I would never be chosen." She said that I was not good enough to become anything. But they were wrong. One girl, no older than 10 cycles, raised her hand. "But how did you become strong?" Zeralla smiled. "I didn't become strong. I just stopped believing their lies." Behind her, Logan watched from the back of the room. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smiling softly. He had encouraged her to speak to the outcast children, not because she owed anyone, but because he saw how her voice brought others to life. After the session, a mother approached her with tears in her eyes. "My daughter stopped eating when she saw her label," the woman whispered. "She thought her life was already over, but now she looks at you like a star." Zeralla's chest tightened. She placed a gentle hand on the mother's shoulder. "Then she will rise higher than they ever imagined." Later that evening, the human captain of Cradle Dawn called her into his quarters. "You've become more than just a crew member," he said. "You're a symbol. The council's pressure is rising again. They want you to attend their cultural unity event." Zeralla raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, they want to use me as a success story?" The captain chuckled. "Something like that. They've offered to let you speak freely, broadcasted across systems." Zeralla didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, watching distant stars shimmer. Like broken glass, a year ago, she would have hidden from such a spotlight. But now, the silence no longer scared her. Her voice had power. It could reach girls still trapped in systems that told them they were nothing. "I'll go," she said at last, "but I won't speak for the council. I'll speak for the ones who were never given a voice." When the event arrived, the grand hall was filled with delegates, officers, scholars, and breeders. Thousands more watched through screens across nearby worlds and stations. Zeralla walked slowly to the center platform. No robe, no crown, no title pinned to her chest. Just herself, tall, calm and glowing with quiet strength. She looked at the crowd, then at the main camera. She began speaking not with anger, but with truth. "For years, I believed I was unwanted, unfit, unworthy. Because a test said I didn't have the right genes, because I was told I would never be chosen. I believed them until a human looked at me and saw more. He didn't see a class, he didn't see a label. He saw me." Her voice grew firmer. "I am not here because I was reevaluated. I'm here because I decided their evaluation didn't matter." Gasps filled the room. Some frowned, others leaned forward in shock. But no one interrupted. She pointed to the camera. "To those watching who feel broken, listen. You are not your rank, not your rejection, not your report. You are more than what they failed to see." She ended with a whisper. "Don't wait for someone to pick you. Choose yourself." The hall erupted in silence, not applause, just stillness, because her words had struck deep. Even the ones who didn't believe her couldn't ignore her that night as she stepped off the stage. Dozens approached her, not to question her, but to thank her. Some asked for advice, some asked just to shake her hand. Even the Breeder Council's head elder, who once dismissed her, bowed slightly. "You've changed things we thought were unchangeable," he said quietly. Zeralla didn't bow back. She only said, "Change began the day I was seen by someone you overlooked." Later, back on the cradle dawn, she stood in her room. A gift waited for her left by Logan. It was a small pendant, shaped like a star. Underneath it was a note, handwritten, "You. Thought no one would want you. Now the galaxy listens when you speak, and I never stopped wanting you." Zeralla held the pendant close to her heart. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from full, bright joy. She had gone from invisible to irreplaceable, from unwanted to unforgettable. And somewhere in the stars, more girls were rising too, all because one human said a word the galaxy had forgotten. Beautiful.